With the continued goal of trying to make complex stuff simple, I'm going to use a lot of complex science today, explained as simply as I possibly can, and flip it into very spiritual, very simple spiritual concept to unlock the combination of the universe, okay? How's that for a goal? Let's pull that off. So again, we're going to have complex science into simple spirituality. I'll try to take complex science and make it simple, and using Einstein's, one of my favorite sayings of his, expressions of his, that imagination is more important than knowledge, okay? Imagination is more important than knowledge. That's a big deal, because we're going to talk about some science, and I'm going to ask you to use your imagination more than the science of it, because I don't have the science perfectly correct, that's for sure. I'm interested in the implications of the science flipped into the imagination so we can understand a very, very simple spiritual concept, okay? Now, I'm pretty confident in the science and some of the math I'm about to do, but the imagination quality is more important than understanding it on the knowledge level, said Albert Einstein, smartest guy ever. Plus his mentor, Max Planck, Einstein's teacher, pretty smart guy too, said that knowledge, paraphrase, knowledge is actually a metaphysical belief. The very knowledge that we covet in science, one of the smartest guys ever, compared it to a metaphysical belief anyways. He says it's direct perception. You don't know something until you do know something. And once you know something is true, you know it to be true for yourself. He calls that a metaphysical belief, because it's unprovable, ultimately, until you've proven it to yourself. And so what is metaphysics? Okay, very simply, definition is metaphysics is a philosophy that seeks the first principle of things. And they're often abstract concepts, okay? The first principle, often abstract, okay? So that's exactly what we're gonna do, using imagination and science and spirituality to look at something pretty abstract, pretty big, pretty huge, make it as simple as possible, and really fairly divine. So we're gonna start with some basic math. Basic math equals mc squared. Again, I believe this works. I might be missing something. I think it's super simple math. I've talked about it before, but never in this context. And again, this time I want you to use imagination while I talk about this. So E equals mc squared, pretty scientific concept, equation most of us have heard of. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. The c is a constant, and it is the speed of light squared. I don't really understand the science of it other than this, as Einstein himself said, that equals is super important. Different manifestations of the same thing. Very important. Different manifestations of the same thing. Einstein's science, okay? So when I use basic equations like 8 equals 2 times 4, that's true, right? Basic math, 8 equals 2 times 4. Is it also true if I take the 4 and put it under the 8, that I have 8 divided by 4 equals 2? Also true, basic mathematical concept. I think that's a therefore symbol, I think, from my old English days. That's what I got there. Therefore, if this equation is true, therefore, this equation would be true. Just like I took the 4 and put it under the 8, I'm going to take the c squared and put it under the e. And so if I take e divided by c squared, I now have m. What is m? It's mass. What is c squared? Well, it's the speed of light squared. I did the math. It is 345 trillion, 960 billion, that's what it is, okay? That huge number, it's basically 346 trillion. Huge number. So if you take energy and you divide it by 346 trillion, mass shows up. Well, that's fascinating. Scientists have always been wondering how energy and mass are related. In a minute, we're going to talk about the Higgs boson particle, or the God particle, as it relates to this. Somehow there's a connection between that which is energy, which is everything, and that which is mass, which is what we're experiencing, okay? The mass of stuff. And so you take E and you divide it by 346 trillion, you end up with M. What does that mean? E, and it's a little teeny tiny imagination needed here. Think of E as spirit. Think of E as light. It's even there in the equation. It's super close to what light is. All its energy is visible light. All right, when all the prophets, Jesus in particular, talk about you are the light, it's not that big of a leap to think of it as spirit, okay? So if you take spirit or energy and you reduce it, like if you take 8 and you reduce it by 4, you end up with 2, you get a smaller version of it, if you will. If you take energy and you slow it way down, super fast energy, slowed way down, bodies show up. Okay? And so when we're told we're the light and that we're working towards enlightenment, it's understanding that all we are, remember different manifestations of the same thing, all we are is energy slowed way down. So your body is energy and who you are eternally is energy. It's all energy, okay? It's all light. But this physical form is just slow down light. Got it? Okay. So here, I worked about 5 hours on this drawing. Here's the universe. And here's where some super fun science comes into play, okay? You have the world in physics known as the upper, in spirituality, Kabbalah calls it upper light. And then you have the lower aspect of the world, which is the physical world, where you see all the stuff. Here you got people and birds and money, and I added a football. The world of stuff. And you have the world of energy. Here's E, here's M, and the visible world is the C squared, and when you whip this whole thing together, you have the same thing in different form. Just like water can be ice and liquid at the same time, it's still H2O. You have same thing, different form. Here's the E, there's the M, and this dividing line here I've got in green is really well defined by three scientific concepts to help us again visualize from an imagination way what's really going on here. So we have the E world, all energy, and then we have the lower dimensional world, which is just the E world slowed down. Just like if you go to bed at night and you have a dream, your conscious world is slowed down into this dream inside your head. Now you're having another level of an experience. Well, that's what's happening. We're all spiritual beings having a physical experience. The E has slowed down. So here's some heavy-duty science to try to explain this so that we can really visualize this and help it feel really real. So here's three significant concepts, somewhat abstract, but very well studied.